Welcome to the Bayonet's Countdown to November, a series of interviews with the candidates in the November 4th general election. I'm Dick Myers. With me for this segment of the show is Randy Guy, who's a Republican candidate for St. Mary's County Commissioner President. Great to have you with us, Randy.
Thank you very much, Dick.
Randy's opponent in the election is incumbent Democrat Francis Jack Russell. You've run before. Why did you decide to run again?
Still discouraged with the way the county's going and the progress of our development here and everything. We seem to be really heavily weighed towards the base. Seems like very little economic planning as far as going into any other thing like tourism or farming or whatever, something to growth, even though some new things have come in recently with the new involvement of the commercialization of UAVs come right here to our airport. I mean, that's a great thing to start up with. And the base, of course, is definitely our hub. And what's been really great is they just bought that farm down there just south of there, another 200 acres. The Navy bought most of it, so obviously they want to stay too. So it makes a little better easement as far as BRAC taking anything away from us, so I think that's good. And I love the county. I'm of course born and raised down here, other than my experience in the Air Force and everything, and I really want to stay here. I want to make it more livable and better quality of life for our senior citizens, especially those who want to stay and watch their children and grandchildren grow down here. And
So how long were you in the Air Force?
26 years total in the Air Force. Yeah, I spent most of my time, during a time period, I was only home during vacation period time, but I did spend the last 7 years in my Air Force career up here in the Air Force, actually at a Joint Service Chemical Warfare Joint Task Force, and then the Pentagon my last 3 years as the enlisted air crew manager at the Pentagon.
What kind of management experience did you have through the Air Force?
The Air Force is probably my greatest part. My last 3 years I spent at the Air Staff managing the enlisted air crew force, which is at that time was 11,600 individuals, and I had to manage their training and our $42 million budget, not $1 million budget. And of course, lately being here, small business I had for 14 years in the county, Southern Maryland Pools and Spas. I sold it out. I also was on I was elected for 4 years on the Democratic Central Committee, and I've been on of course, right now the last 5 years on the Board of Appeals. Mm-hmm. So that's given me some great experience and exposure to government.
So obviously you've changed from Democrat to Republican?
Yes, I did. I was
Why are you a Republican?
I was, of course, Democrat because my family from here. Now, if you were 50 years ago, if you weren't a Democrat in St. Mary's County, you had no say-so in politics.
There were like 3 Republicans, so...
Exactly. We had no say-so in politics. My whole family was always, and I remember my father greeting guys that were running for office and would talk about how they're Democrats, but then they weren't any good, but I have to vote for them because they're Democrat. I don't feel that way, but I was always a very conservative Democrat, and I just kept getting discouraged, the direction. You know, unfortunately, they kept spending, of course, taxing. And I said, wait a minute, the government needs to be involved in developing the workplace, not necessarily just giving money away and projects away. We've got to stop spending so much.
Was your family involved in politics in St. Mary's County?
Believe it or not, my father was on the Central Committee in 1962 when J. Frank Raley ran for Senate and won. He was then involved. He was always involved in politics, but he never went any further than that. He was just too busy raising a family of 6 boys, so he didn't have time to really run out too much.
So are you totally retired now?
Yes, I'm retired from the military. Of course, Social Security eligible, and other than staying involved in the Lions Club in Leonardtown, the American Legion, those are my 2 passions. I'm heavily involved in both of those. I believe they're very good community service type organizations. I've stayed involved in the government by the Board of Appeals. I go to Planning Commission conferences whenever I can. So I've stayed involved in all of that.
You mentioned economic diversification, and the county is launching an effort in that regard. What's the county's role in that?
Well, we depend so, and the Navy has been a wonderful thing that's happened here. And of course, it's brought a lot of great economic things to us and to Boone. And of course, it's raised the pay scale of a lot of people, but there's a lot of us here that don't have that kind of a pay scale. A lot of people that I know, that I grew up with, are not quite in that level of the $80,000 or above type of pay scale. And we've depended so heavily and forgot about everything else around us. Of course, our great water resources we have, farming community, and tourism. I think would also be a great thing. And the colleges have got St. Mary's College, and of course, Southern College, St. Mary's, the community colleges and everything have been built up. So we've got a great base here to do almost anything, but unfortunately, come down 235.5, you sort of end up at a dead end at Point Lookout. So we don't have that roof area, you might say. So it's tough to invite people in here with some kind of manufacturing, but we have to devise what we have here and push that to get people not only to stay here, but to come here retirement-wise, or to come here for work.
So should the county be putting more money into those efforts?
Not that so much money is developing what we have and attracting business. You know, we need to look at businesses, not taxing them so much and regulating them so much, as to come in here and say, okay, please come here and put your workforce here. We got the people and we have the resources to train them and to get you the qualified people you need. And that's the main thing. We need to attract people to come here.
I know the state has a rap of not being business friendly, but as a small business person yourself, at one time, is the county not as business friendly as it could be?
I think the state is, the delegates that serve at the state level have to do more to make it friendly. I don't think the county is so unfriendly. I think we're probably more friendly than the state is. Because my experience with, when I was in the pool and spa business, I felt that my problem was state level regulations and everything from just, I almost say ridiculous things, like when they started, for example, I had guys working for me and the state was required for me to report these people. And if they had, like, for example, child support, I had to collect it out of their pay, fill out paperwork, and send it in. That's the right thing to do. Everybody should be responsible. But it's a lot of additional things. It's just one thing that they add on to the responsibility of the business person to do that. And it just makes it a lot difficult, a lot more paperwork, and the insurance regulations, and it keeps adding and adding and adding. And the cost, you just have to, of course, feed back to your customer. Then you're raising your prices. Nobody likes to do that. And I think we need to be tighter on that and give breaks to small business as much as possible to attract them and keep them here.
You said that you were from St. Mary's County. Where'd you go to school?
I actually went to Little Flower. I went to Pocos School the whole time.
Okay.
Little Flower School and then St. Michael's School.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is about education. It seems, I'm asking all the candidates
Sure.
This question. It seems that every year at budget time there's an upset, and there's the commissioners and the Board of Education at each other, and a lot of noise. Is there anything that can be done to try to avoid that?
Of course, the key thing, I feel as a commissioner, my responsibility is the Board of Education has to submit a budget. And they're elected too by the people. And that budget comes to us, and I'm not going to micromanage them or micromanage the superintendent and his staff on where that money is all going. Now, if it's greatly exceeds the normal budget or where it's been in years, I might question why. And I have a reason to ask that, and I want them to respond back. If they say it's for teacher pay and they haven't given anything for 5 years, whatever, fine. But I'm hoping that they could come up with a budget and stick with that budget the entire time.
Do you think then that the county is adequately funding the schools?
Well, I think the county is doing a good job, but if you look at the rural funding at the state level, you look at all the counties that are funded, Baltimore County gets twice as much funding per pupil than we do. Now, I don't understand all that. That's something the legislators have to answer to in the Senate, but I question that. And the same with the state. The federal side, the federal funds the larger counties more than we get funded per pupil. So I can't understand that at all, even though our graduation rate is far better than Baltimore County, but yet they get twice the funding from the state level.
Of course, the employees, the teachers, and the other employees in the school system would disagree that the school system is adequately funded because they are pushing for more funding. They say they haven't gotten what they've been promised. How would you deal with that issue as a county commissioner?
It's difficult. Everybody wants, money is always an issue for anybody. So when you start saying, well, okay, increase the funding, if we don't have the money or if we can't take funding from some other budget, then we have to, nothing left to do is raise taxes. And I really don't want to do that. I'm a firm believer we need to hold the taxes. I think I need to work with the legislators in the Senate to provide more funding at that level. And I'd be questioning why these other counties get twice as much as we're getting funding per pupil, especially when our graduation rate is better than ours.